All right, good morning, everybody. And with us on the call this morning, we have William H. Murray, and Bill is coming in to deliver the InfraGard editorial today, and we're only too happy to have him on the program with us each and every week here at InfraGard. And Bill, we're on the recording. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about essential practices too. We're following up on what we started last week.
Okay, essential practices. Here we go. Number 2. Take it away, Bill.
Last week we introduced and defined essential practices. We said that they were measures that can be done by anyone with available resources, are about point 0.8 effective, but which complement one another. I promised that this week we would identify and discuss some. I said some would be fairly obvious. For example, changing default passwords. This one is so obvious that we really do not even have to call it out. However, if one reads the Verizon data breach report, one finds that there must be a very large number that have not yet been changed. Surely it meets the definition. User and management awareness training may or may not qualify, depending upon how one values the time of the users and the managers and how well one uses that time. On the other hand, many recent breaches have relied, at least in part, on duping users. And of course, the way we defend against duping users is we try to get the users informed. Formal risk acceptance makes the risk. It's used when, for business reasons, management elects to accept rather than mitigate a risk. The risk acceptance document is written by the security staff and signed by a line management executive. The security staff describes the risk and the reason for accepting it, and the business executive, one with sufficient resources and authority to mitigate the risk if he chose, signs it. Its life is the shorter of the specified period, the tenure of the signing executive, or 1 year. After any one of those 3 events, the risk acceptance has to be revisited. Explicit assignment of security roles and responsibilities and supervision to ensure that they are carried out in both an effective and efficient manner makes the list. When people fail to do what management expects, it is far more often the result of a failure of management to communicate the expectation than it is a failure of motive or intent on the part of the users. It's essential, both in the sense that assignment of roles and responsibilities is essential, both in the sense of our definition and in the sense of necessary. Unique user identifiers make our list. Again, while the motivation for shared IDs have all but vanished, the Verizon data breach report suggests that they persist and that they contribute to our breaches. It's ironic that the most frequently shared IDs are privileged ones. Can you say root? The ones where accountability is the most important. Similarly, we should be using strong passwords. Not so much because we are seeing a lot of brute force attacks against passwords, but because accountability requires that we be able to take the possibility that there was such an attack and that the password is compromised. We have to take that off the table. Antivirus and personal firewalls would appear here on the list. We used them last week as examples. The personal hardware firewall changes the policy of the personal system from permissive to restrictive. It hides personal system vulnerabilities, some of which will never be identified, much less fixed, from the internet where they might be exploited. Of course, say firewall in most enterprises and the network managers go ballistic. They are certain that any firewall will break applications. However, we're not talking here about network firewalls, we're talking about personal firewalls. I give these away as hospitality gifts. If I visit you for a weekend, I'll bring and install a Linksys router. I've yet to break an application. Indeed, firewalls and applications are becoming increasingly aware of one another and configure themselves as necessary. Ranking with antivirus and firewalls, we put backup. We use backup because our storage is fragile and our data is friable. We use it because it is the measure that protects us against those threats that we cannot anticipate. We use it because computers do nothing else quite so well as they make cheap, clean, dense, portable copies of our data. This measure is so effective and so efficient that it's irresponsible not to take advantage of it. My colleague Lou Scoma used to argue that if your business records are destroyed, the chances that you will be able to resume business are less than 1 in 10. Having decided to make backup copies of our data, we should encrypt the copies. The more copies of the data, the more persistent it is, but the greater the possibility that it will leak. We have also seen tens of cases now in which we are unable to account for a clear text copy of backups. We don't know what happened to them. Maybe they fell off the back of the truck. Maybe they were stolen. Maybe FedEx or UPS lost accountability for them. Maybe Iron Mountain lost them. We don't know. But had they been encrypted, we wouldn't even have to worry about it. Most of the software that we use for backup contains an encryption feature. Backup software with an encryption feature is not that much more expensive than that without it. Now, a lot of managers are reluctant to encrypt the data, the backup data, for fear that the encryption will keep them from recovering it. But the software takes care of that. It selects the key, it remembers the key, it's going to be able to decrypt its own data when it gets it back again. These measures are so fundamental, so efficient, so essential, that we must get them done even before we take time to consider other measures. Applying these measures early is essential to our qualifying as professionals and being paid the big bucks. Next week, I'm going to add to the list. I may not quite complete it next week, and I'll have some comments to make on it the following week. Look forward to seeing you then.
All right, that helps when I turn the mics back on. I'm trying to avoid some of the background noise here. All right, Bill, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate it. And another good discussion on essential practices, and certainly something people will be able to put into their tool bag, right? And that's what a lot of this is about, creating a tool bag where people can kind of go into some of these videos and really learn some invaluable lessons, all right? And have some solid takeaways in a short period of time. Certainly, you know, something between 5 and 10 minutes is somebody could, you know, they could certainly take that time. So certainly appreciate you coming on the program, and we look forward to hearing from you next week. Thank you very much.